I think you need to learn from the people around you. I think you need to listen to those you love and their opinions.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Stuart Woodrow. Previously, episode 25 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast, which was 3 years, 2 months, 18 days, and 23 hours ago.
I think people should follow their dreams and try and find things that make them happy. At the end of the day, life is short. Take of it what you can and make the most of it.
Stuart, how are you doing, my friend? Where are you in the world right now?
Mr. Angel Jones, I am doing good. I'm still in Paris. Much hasn't changed, but at the same time, much has changed. So there's a lot to talk about in just a short space of time, I think.
Well, that's what we do best at the 12-Minute Convos. So let's start from where we left off, please. Talking tipsters and Tipster HQ.
Yeah, unfortunately, Tipster HQ did not go the way it's done. I wanted it to. And unfortunately, I've recently had to make the decision to close it down. Basically, just got to a point where there was so much competition in the marketplace that unless you had a serious amount of money to make yourself stand out, it was impossible to do so. So I thought, I've got to stop throwing money at this at some point, and decided to make that hard decision.
That's interesting. That when we first spoke, that was something you spoke about. You spoke about how necessary it is to be able to make that decision to cut when it's necessary to cut. It's a challenge that entrepreneurs have. How have you been able to stand on top of that?
I think there's a few things. Basically, my personal life, I've got to a point now where I'm old. I'm 41, which is old for entrepreneurs, So got to a point where we said, right, we need to make some changes and we need to save some money because we're looking to buy a house, which we may be talking about later. But I'm looking to buy a house, and if I'm doing that, I can't be spending €9,000 or £9,000 a year on hosting and getting things done for the website and things like that. And it's basically, we got to a point where I was spending so much money on accountancy each year. It just wasn't worth doing everything. And it's a real shame because it's an area that I loved working in. And I'm still going to be doing bits and pieces of work in the sports betting area. But it's more going to be hobby than actual business now.
What about the option of helping those that are about to enter to not go through what you've gone through? Is that an option?
If anyone ever wants to talk to me, then they should feel very happy to hit me up. There aren't many Stuart Woodrows in Paris. I think there's just two of us. So if you can find me on Facebook, I will always talk to anyone, and just talk through their ideas, because I think that's important. Have someone that you can bounce an idea off. As we talked about before, you've got to have a passion for it. If I didn't have a passion for the sports betting industry, then I wouldn't have stuck at it for 3 and a bit years. It's only recently that I've had to make that decision to go, right, I really can't be doing this any longer. But, you got to go for it. You got to try it. You got to have a passion for it. But at some point, you've got to say this isn't working, and you've got to be able to step back.
Now, somewhere around where you are, there has to be a little toddler running around because when we last spoke, you were expecting. What's going on there?
Yeah, he's 3 now. I mean, he's 3 and he's big for 3. I mean, I have no other children to compare this to, but he's over a meter tall. He runs around like a little whirling dervish. He's incredible. He speaks 3 languages, which is amazing.
Which are?
Well, my wife is Romanian. So he speaks English, French, obviously, because we live in France, and Romanian.
That's amazing.
So, I mean, there are times he's talking to me, and I have absolutely no idea whether he's talking in Romanian or in baby language, because it could be either of those two.
How well do you understand Romanian?
Generally, I understand bits and pieces, because there's things that are similar in French and also Italian, which I, know tiny little bits of. But basically, I would say less than 5%.
I just got off from a conversation with Ashley Logsdon, who has been traveling the US for just over 2.5 years. And she spoke about how necessary it is to focus on the values of life that we get out of life. I think like one of the scenarios you've run up on is doing that in your business. And now you've chosen on the value scale, family, instead of business because of what's happening. How do you usually use your values for measuring your decisions?
Well, as soon as I announced the fact that I was closing down Tipster HQ, I actually got approached by someone who works similar area in the industry, and they wanted me to come on board and do work with them. But of course, I work a full-time job as well, and my only available time was in the evenings, and that's my time for spending with my family. And when I looked at it, although the money was pretty good, it was a case of, is that money worth more or less than the time I spend with my family? And frankly, nothing is worth more than the time I spend with my family. So I basically said, I really want to help you out, but at the end of the day, there are limits and I can't be doing too much. So if they come back to me and say, you can do it after 9:30 at night when my son's asleep, that's an entirely different thing. But I still want to spend time with my wife. So,
Yes.
family is important, but also earning money is as well. You've got to find that right balance. And my day job pays us enough to keep the walls from the door.
When you look back over the last couple of years, do you have any regrets?
I wish I'd listened to my wife, frankly. I mean, my wife early on, she was saying, is this working? We're spending X amount of money on it each year. Is this working? Is this worth the hassle and the stress? And she has been proven right. But, I wanted to make it work, and I wanted to make it so bad that I was kind of closing my eyes to the realities that I was spending a lot of money and not making a lot of traction.
Well, that's a painful statement to say, man to man, husband to husband. Where did you get that ability from to? I mean, of course, you've already pig-headed this through the couple of years, right? But still, to say it takes a ton. Like, where did that come from, that quality?
I think if you ever met my wife, you would understand. My wife is a force of nature. So there's very little you could actually have an argument with her. And if you're going to have an argument with her, you got to make sure you're on solid ground, because she will come to you with strong facts.
It brings us to the conversation of networking, which is something that was high on your radar when we last spoke, in terms of how important it is to network. Are you still doing that?
Well, my day job has actually changed to a point where it is effectively networking. It's part networking, it's part coaching, it's part product knowledge. So, I mean, I work for an online marketplace, and we have specialist people who have experience in particular products. And my job has been to go out, network, and find those people, bring them in and build a team. And although we're a very small team, we're actually quite successful. So I'm really happy with the way things are going there.
Have you done LinkedIn Local?
LinkedIn Local? No. I've had the LinkedIn Professional, which I was using for a little while, but it's basically I've been able to use my network and just get them to spread out a little bit further each time and find people who are exactly right for what I need.
So LinkedIn Local is like the physical event that happens. I'm sure there's a LinkedIn Local host in your area. I would strongly suggest you look into that, where you meet those that are on LinkedIn. And of course, the network opportunity face-to-face occurs. So LinkedIn Local, I'm guessing France or Paris, is a great idea. Like, test that out. Let me know how it goes. I've tested one in Trinidad recently, and it was really amazing. Like, to have people in one space that are coming with one professional understanding is really cool.
Yeah, I was using the Meetup for a while. There's some Meetup groups in Paris for entrepreneurs and people like that.
Okay.
I was getting involved in those, but I generally found that the people in that were very, very insular. They weren't looking to share their knowledge or share their experiences.
Yeah.
It was, I've got this and I'm keeping it to myself.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to develop an idea, you need to find someone you can actually talk it through with, because they can come to you with ideas. I'm making a fairly big change now. We're looking to buy a house. And one of the things that I'm actually now looking to do is make videos of the changes in the house as we go. So we can almost do time lapses. Yeah, time lapses of a room as we do the room up, and we can talk about what we're doing, and people can see the techniques that we're using to just do simple things like grouting, putting in electrics, plumbing. I mean, we're looking to potentially buy a house that is way too big for us and way too expensive, but we may be able to take that and actually build some content around it. So I'll be looking to build, a YouTube channel around it, Instagram, Pinterest, all those things, but without an actual firm site. So I'll be taking advantage of everything that's free and won't cost me a penny, which will be lovely.
Love it. You spoke on actionable ideas, and you're still doing that today. It's one thing to have the idea, it's another thing to take action on it. Congratulations, Stuart. I want to say thank you, my friend. Thank you for being true to who you are, going through what some call... I just can't call it a failure. You know, I consider it the foundation, the building block of success. And I'm glad that you've been true to your passion. I'm glad that you're still married, given that your wife has expressed how she feels, which means love is definitely present. But most, I want to say thanks for being what is now the foundation of the 12-Minute Convos podcast, my friend. Stuart, in closing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I think you need to learn from the people around you. I think you need to listen to those you love and their opinions. And sometimes you need to ignore that opinion if you're absolutely sure that you can make it. But you've also got to listen to them, because sometimes they can come up with stuff that you maybe need to be listening to.
Stuart Woodrow, again, a pleasure. I treasure. Thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.